I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Abington School Committee here on Tuesday, November 28, 2023 in the Abington Middle High School Library. If you could please stand for the salute of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start, I just wanted to mention that the agenda lists the public hearing on school choice participation for next school year will be held at 7 p.m. We're going to push it a little bit back. 7 p.m. at least let us know that we can do it at any point after that. So it'll be in the normal part of the agenda, probably about half an hour or so from now, give or take, depending on how it goes. Before we get started on everything else, is there anybody who'd like to address the committee? Please go to the podium and state your name and address for the records. Okay. Next up, reading and approval of records from our last meeting on October 24th. I'm going to get a chance. I'm looking for a motion to approve and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
Is it clean?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So up next, report of the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. Dr. Boss, are you going to start it or?
We're going to start with Mr. Scott.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here to the committee. It's an honor every year to come and talk about the good things that our department's doing. I have a presentation for you prepared. I'll go through that, but please feel free to interrupt with any questions along the way if there's anything that you want to talk about while we're in that moment. I don't have specific slides for it, but I do want to address some of the great things that our department has been doing in addition to some of the other things for progress that we're looking to make this year. So this is the first year that we're offering AP Psychology, which is a great addition to the department. Our leadership elective is now 4 or 5 years into the program, and that has been making great strides for the students in the school and out in the community as well. We look forward to what projects they decide to come up with this semester. And then I also want to highlight our school store and how effective that's been over the last few years as a program for the students, but also as a benefit for the school and the community to purchase Abington Green Wave gear. So those are just some of the many things that our department has been excelling with over the last 12 months since I've seen you. So the first thing that I want to talk about are some of the main goals that we have for this year and then going forward. So the 3 things that I'll talk about in more detail in just a moment are updating our world history curriculum, which is in progress. It's been about a 2 or 3 year process, and we're finishing that up this year. So that will be fully in effect next year. It's partially in effect this year, so that curriculum will be completed for next year. We are working on better meeting the needs for English language learners in the school, and then supporting our students in meeting deadlines. I always like to have some kind of academic specific goal for all of our students, and that is one of the things this year that our department has taken on as a priority. So I'll go through these one at a time. This is not new. We talked about this last year as our focus on developing the world history curriculum for grade 9. So it's a thematic approach. We're going to have 8 themes, 2 themes per term, and this will allow the students to do more project-based and collaborative learning, and also to kind of focus more on the bigger picture goals of world history as opposed to the kind of dates and names focus, but also our existing curriculum was more European centered, and so this allows students by choice and also by design in our curriculum to evolve and do things outside of just European history. So they'll get it to many regions of the world. So Asian history, some African history, South American history. And again, like I said, students will have choice in a lot of those. So if one of the themes is the leaders and the led, they might look at leadership structures in maybe European models, but how that also compared to Chinese models or other, maybe Native American models in Central America or something like that, whatever their passion and interest is. So that is finishing up this year through both Wave Week Wednesday, professional development time, and then professional development during the half day and service days. We'll be using that time to finish this work, and it will be fully in effect next year. The next thing that's been a priority for us this year is better meeting the needs of English learners. Just based on the data, it became pretty obvious that history was a course in particular that language learners were struggling with.
There could be a multitude of reasons for that, but what it comes down to is a lot of the tier 2 language and a lot of the terms are challenging potentially for language learners, but also not having the previous 6, 7, 8 years of American history learning. A lot of these students that come in, they don't have the requisite background experience of our government or certain styles things that are unique to the United States that we can take for granted or native students can take for granted that is just something that people know. And so that's something that we've been working to help students with that. Specifically in Wave Wednesdays, we've been meeting with other departments, academic departments, as well as the language learning department, so that we can better improve our strategies to better deliver content. And then we're also working with one of the PLCs that we're doing this year, professional learning committees that we're doing, is on language learners in the school. So this is for the whole school, but we have over half of our department is on that specific committee. So it's a commitment in addition to myself as well. So it's a commitment for the department to better meet these needs, so that we can see them make the improvement that they're capable of. And then lastly, for students meeting deadlines, this is kind of another one of those long list of things of, building back after COVID. We kind of suspended and got rid of a lot of deadlines as a thing during COVID that was necessary. If they were turning in work at all, that was great. And now getting back to the routine 3-4 years out from this, which sounds crazy to say that in a few months we're going to be 4 years out from this. Setting the expectation of deadlines are real and there are consequences if you don't meet them in a compassionate way that is a learning process, not strictly penalizing them, but doing it in a way that can remind them that, in the real world, deadlines matter. So the process that we're all using as a department is we set a deadline and then no work is accepted after the 5 school days of that deadline. And all the members of the department are doing this. I want to draw attention to the asterisk because obviously any student who's on an IEP or a 504 and they're entitled to extra time, that's not impacted by this. They're given the extra time that they're entitled to with their ed plans. This is more as a system that we use for all of our students that aren't entitled to that help. To help support this, obviously we remind students about it at the beginning of the year and periodically as the assignments come out. But we also have the benefit of Canvas and other electronic methods through Aspen so that they can see what work is missing and they'll get emails and notifications through Canvas of, hey, this is due. And then we use Bridgeblock too to pull in students of, we had this big project due last Friday, it's Monday now, why don't we come in and see where we're at so we can make a plan to get it done. So that 5-day cutoff has been a bit of a wake-up call for many students of like, wait, I can't just turn this in now 3 weeks later. It's like, no, that's a 0. And so that can lead to some hard conversations, but the stakes are relatively low in high school compared to in college or later in life, so it's a good lesson to learn. So that's kind of our main academic goal for the department this year. So one of the things that I'll talk tonight about is AP data. So we have data for 2 AP classes this year in our department, AP US History and then AP European History. So you can see the historic data for the last 5 years. The data from last year, while we had a lot of students take the exam, which is, I would say, a positive thing, the scores on the exam were not necessarily reflective of the good work that they did over the course of the year. I know that's the nature of a standardized test, is one-day performance for 4 or 5 hours is not fully representative of 180 days of good work. But obviously the number doesn't lie. We have a lot of work to do in terms of the performance for the AP exam. So that's something that we are certainly working on, and I don't have to go too far to find the teacher that is involved in this. As I'm the one that teaches AP US History class. So if you're gonna burn the pitchforks or whatever you're gonna do, like it's me. So there's no other teacher we need to go looking for. But the students work incredibly hard during the year, and I think what I've tried to do philosophically, which may contribute to the scores as where they are, is I try to gear the course towards the skills that they're going to benefit from in college and an experience that they're going to enjoy and be a part of, as opposed to running a 180-day test prep class. It's a philosophical choice. If I ran it as a 180-day test prep class, or if we did that as a department, might the scores be better? Yes. Might kids hate the class? Probably. So that's a choice that we've made, or that I've made, with relation to this class. And frankly, I'm willing to accept potentially lower scores in exchange for better performance in college and a more enjoyable high school history experience. Again, I'm sure people can disagree with that and maybe want the numbers to be higher to reflect other local communities, but this is where we are. I think another factor that should be considered, and I think is important for Abington, is the number of students taking these classes, 25 the last 2 years, is a very high number for our school, and that's good to get the exposure for those students. And then I think it's also fair to assume that when you have more students in an open enrollment environment, that could potentially impact scores. But again, all of those students are going to go to college, and they're going to benefit from a college-style experience where they're given for the first time the opportunity to maybe choose not to do the reading if they don't want to, and there's not going to be, I don't check notebooks, I don't do daily quizzes on things like that because they don't do that in college. So that's, again, a philosophical choice that I've made, and I'm willing to live with those consequences, but we certainly have work to do. And, I'm thinking with these numbers, obviously, like, what can I do as a class, or what can we do in our class maybe in March or April as we're heading into the exams, maybe do less test prep this time of year, more test prep ahead of the exam. So more dials and knobs to push, but on the flip side of things, our AP European history data, while a smaller number of students, it is a fully elective class. Junior year, they have to take a history class, so there's more kids that tend to elect to take the AP history class. AP European history tends to be for the most passionate history students, and you can see our scores are above average here. Almost everybody the last 2 years who took the class earns a 3 or higher, which is considered the passing grade. So with the students that are passionate about this class and taking the AP European history, they've obviously done quite well. We'll see this year how we do with AP Psych. This is our first year teaching it. We have a lot of students taking it. It's a very popular elective, so I'm excited to report on that data for next year.
Can I ask a question about the test, since
Yeah.
I know it's like an open, does everybody, especially in the previous one, US history, does everyone who takes the class take the test?
Last year, the last 2 years, we've had, frankly, I can't think of a year where we don't have 100%. Yeah, they're juniors, and so anecdotally, usually you see more seniors elect out of taking AP exams because it's, second semester senior year, they're maybe not as interested in taking the exam, or if they can kind of read the writing on the wall, like, I've taken the class all year, I don't have high hopes for how the exam's going to go, I've already gotten into college, like, it's not really worth the time or the money. But the juniors, like I said, maybe one student in the last 10, 12 years doesn't take the exam, so they almost always will do that.
And I feel like I should know this, being on my third kid that's about to go to college. When it's on their transcript, does it reflect anywhere on their transcript what they got on the test? It's only if they choose to submit that? Is that
Correct. Yep. The
so?
AP
It's not a
scores-
detriment to them if they
Nope.
didn't get a passing grade on the test, as long
Not
as
at
they
all.
did well in the class.
Nope. So they can choose to submit it, if they get a higher score, or they get whatever score that they want to do. But I think from a resume standpoint and from a grade standpoint, they can show to schools, I chose to take, or I volunteered to take the hardest class that I could take in college, which they should be rewarded for.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. And I did, for when I was doing my master's degree, I did research on this because it's a topic I was passionate and directly interested in. And the data shows a much stronger correlation with success in college and completion of college with just taking the course as opposed to the score that they got on the exam. So again, we want the numbers to go up, but taking the class is more beneficial to them than the one-day performance. Any other AP questions before I move on?
I was going to save mine for the end, but if we're
Oh, yeah, we can,
just in general, I agree. We always have work to do as teachers, AP teachers. But I did just, I like to compare the results with local communities. So
Sure.
you had mentioned that. And when I think about Abington and towns that we're comparable to, just checking in for DESE, the 2021, 2022 scores are available. I don't think last year's are out yet. But when I look at Rockland, East Bridgewater, I checked obviously like the Norwalls, Hingham's, Duxbury's, but even Situate, Rockland, EB, Situate, we were for scores in the 3 to 5 category. We were comparable, I think, with Situate and ahead by quite a bit overall. I don't know if it was just history that I checked, but overall for our scores. So when we think about where we are and what our community is like, we were, even with the lower scores, we were right there with everybody else or ahead in the 3 to 5 range. And I completely agree with you. Scores do matter for the kids, but essentially as educators, our job is to keep them wanting to learn. And so if they're learning and liking school and liking the subject, that's really important.
thank you.
Mr. Scott, can I ask
Yeah.
you a question since we're on the U.S. history one?
Yeah,
It's more about the trend. So if like from 2020 to 23, it's gone. So the global earning 3 or higher, percent local earning 3 or higher, global average score here, everything's gone down. Is there a reason that you can see for that? Was there a reason in 2020 why it was? Because if you look 21 through 3 is kind of similar. Is there a reason why 2020 stuck out? Like, I don't know how COVID would have impacted those scores, if at all.
The 2020 score was a different exam. So
Okay.
they had to change the exam because they couldn't do in-person tests. So they
Okay.
all took it at home.
Okay.
And they didn't do the same types of questions that they normally would have done. So that should be kind of like an asterisk
Okay.
year
Okay.
in general, because it's not apples to apples in terms of what the performance that they took was.
Okay.
Going down, statistically, it's AP US history is not statistically the most difficult exam. I want to say like Chinese language, like there's a more obscure test. And then I think one of the chemistry or science class statistically is more difficult, but it's one of the 20 or 25 AP exams that are out there. It's the second or third most challenging.
Okay.
It's also one of the most popular, and so it's again that same thing.
No,
of like
yeah, for sure.
More kids are taking it, it's going to bring scores down.
No, it makes sense. And it was just more, it was that one, that year kind of stood out higher. The other ones are kind of grouped similar.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's my. I'm not a data analyst.
Yeah.
I certainly don't work for College Board. That would be my guess. Is
okay.
it was a different test, so
Yeah, okay.
it's really not apples to apples.
I would also say that the kids who took that test in 2020 were not affected by COVID learning, so they had a consistent academic experience up until that point. I'd like to see the numbers before that, because I'm guessing they were higher. And then what we're seeing with that trend downwards is kids, all the negative effects of the kids and what they have gone through
Makes
the
sense.
past
Like
couple
3
of
years from now, it might come back up to where it could have been. I know what you're saying, but yeah, the idea. Makes sense.
Can I also ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
So if you have a student, so first of all, I completely agree with everyone on scores, and I'm not at all concerned with the average score. I'd rather students take it and have a great experience and feel ready for college. If you have a student who does want to perform well because they're looking either for college credit or they're looking to have a profession in this field, do you feel that you cover all of the content throughout the year to get a 4 or 5 on the exam? Is it like a content, or is it really just like test taking and maybe memorization skills?
Yeah, I think there's multiple factors to do that. So I think in terms of covering all the content, I would say no, because there's so much. I mean, the course is $14.91 to present. So
in 180 days.
yeah, AP European history and world history, they cover broader periods. So whatever, but it's a lot of material to cover. And so I think they've done a decent job. They redesigned the test about 5 or 6 years ago, before the test was truly just a memory thing. It was 80 multiple choice questions and you did some writing. Now it's less multiple choice with documents provided. So it's more what you would actually do in like studying history as opposed to just I can remember or memorize everything. So I would say that while we don't cover everything that could possibly be on the exam, that's not necessarily to the detriment, or that's not going to be the sole factor as to why a student might not perform. I would say it would tend to come from either struggles or challenges with writing, luck of the draw with a certain topic that they got for the exam, or for their essays that they choose. And so it's one of those things that I like to tell students when I'm advertising the course is like they're going to get out of it what they put into it. And so if a student is really looking to get that 5 or really looking to study for this, then I can provide for them outside opportunities for them to do more on their own. The average student is not going to necessarily desire that or want to take advantage of doing more writing on the weekend or something. So, but for students that are passionate, we've certainly had, students get 5s in the past, and I think the best, maybe till the day I retire, one of the best compliments that I got was a student who went to Harvard and said the class that taught me the most about how to write at Harvard was this class. So to me, like that felt really good, but that student was also hyper motivated, obviously, as a Harvard student. So it's really up to them to decide what effort they want to put in, what opportunities they want to take advantage of, which is, again, truly indicative of the college learning experience. Like no college professor is going to force feed you anything. It's your choice. So, yeah, but that's a good question.
Thank you.
I had to, that's why I was laughing, because that was exactly what I was going to add. Like, if there was a student who that was their end
Certainly.
game was that college credit, that 5, it sounds like you clearly have a plan in place to help them get there.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm just wondering, do you ever elicit feedback from the kids after the test?
Yep.
To
So
see-
I don't have like formalized data, but we'll sit down and we always do conferences for each of the terms for grading, and I'll ask them. And so, well, how do you think the exam went? But also like, okay, now that we've done the exam and now that you have your grades for the year, like, how much reading did you actually do? And like how much of the stuff that we assigned, or like what was your approach to this, or how many opportunities did you take advantage of? And usually it kind of tracks with exactly what I would have thought. Like the student's like, yeah, I didn't do much reading, or that kind of thing. And it's like, but I knew that, and I'm fine with the one that I got in the exam, and like I enjoyed the class. So that's great. I'm fine with that. If they're there, they took the opportunity, and it's a choice that they could make. And then other students, it's there are occasions where a student puts in a lot of work, and I would have expected them to do better, and just either a tough day or luck of the draw, and they didn't get the performance that they wanted, and that's a shame. That's a bummer, certainly. But when the scores don't match up with their performance over the course of the year. But I think it's really hard to boil down 4 hours of one day versus 180 days of an experience. Like anything can happen, for better or worse, in one given day. Because some students surprise the opposite way. Like I didn't think that kid had a shot of getting a 3, and then they come in and get a 3 or a 4. So they surprise.
Will you remind me what the feeder course for this is?
So they'll take U.S. History 1 as a sophomore. Almost all of them will take the honors level of that. It is open enrollment, so a level 2 student conceivably can take an AP class junior year. That's why I don't know how far into the weeds you want me to get of the curriculum of the course, but we don't teach AP U.S. History as a U.S. History 2 class. We teach it as 1491 to present. So that was a pretty quick, no, I don't want to go. That's fine. So great. Any other questions on AP, Brad? Awesome. So this is just, again, to recap, this has not changed from years in the past, but ways that students get recruited to the class. So that the main way is students in their sophomore year or junior year for AP European History will get a teacher recommendation. They don't have to follow that recommendation, or they can override it or choose to take it if they are not recommended. But that's the number one way. It is open enrollment, as I said, and then all the teachers do review all of our electives, including the AP classes, before students do the selection. We're very lucky as a department to offer probably the most diverse offering in terms of elective courses. And so students, almost all of the students in the school will take advantage of some kind of elective, not necessarily AP courses, but one of our electives at least. Something to note this year that's a change or a new development for us is in 8th grade. We are going to be piloting the MCAS civics exam in the spring this year. So that's something that's new this year. It's an opportunity for students that the state is, well, I guess it's an opportunity. The state is, we're doing it.
Interject?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's actually a field test this year. For the last 2 years, it's been a pilot, so districts could opt in. This year is a field test. You have no choice. You have to be a part of the field test as a district in Massachusetts. So just, it is part of the pilot of 3 years. This year, there's no choice. It's a field test.
Thank you for that correction.
No problem.
So yeah, we've had faculty members that teach 8th grade civics attending professional development from the state this fall. We have so next week, one of our half day, the middle school staff will be working on preparing for the civics exam for that delivery and the skills to take that coming up this year. So in terms of business department enrollment, just to touch on this as well, our data is not really anything mightily different from years past. Historically, you can see a little bit of a trend down in terms of overall enrollment in the program, but we're teaching actually one more section of business than we were last year. So we have 11 sections of electives running in our business department this year. So personal finance as one specific elective is running for 48 seniors this year, and then 144 students between the other business electives that we offer there. So in terms of personal finance, the math department this year is going to be doing a unit at the end of the year in the spring for graduating seniors. So I'll let the math, I don't know if Ms. Doherty has presented yet or not for the, okay, so I don't want to steal her thunder too much, but so they're going to be doing some work with personal finance skills specifically for graduating seniors, and then the business department will be contributing to that as well. And then, of course, the big thing for seniors that we run every year is Credit for Life, which we'll be running again in May as an opportunity for students to, it's a very personal finance focus, so it's a lot of those life skills and challenges that students will be meeting as a program that the community has been very generous to support and participate in with local business owners and other families in town that come in, and basically every student gets a sheet of like, this is my career, this is my earnings, these are my debts, things like that, and they get to make a choice about, okay, you want to buy a car, which kind of car do you want to buy, or if you're going to buy a house or rent a house, can you afford that on your salary, things like that. So it's a great experience for the kids. We do it off-site. Kids dress up because there's interviews and conversations with the community members and business owners. So it's a great opportunity for seniors to get that personal finance experience. So that's the gist of what I have for you, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that people have as well. Yeah?
3 things.
Yeah.
All interested seniors, it's not all seniors?
It is not a requirement. So I would say 90+% of students choose to do it, but it is something they have to opt into.
The school store. I know my kids were in one of the business classes and they designed products. Are those school store products the ones that the kids design? Do they sell them in the school store?
So yes, the ones that kids design, so it gets a little confusing from time to time because the athletic department also sells things through, I think BSN is the company. So those are kind of like the 2 main places you can buy Green Wave gear. But if there's something that's, chances are if the students are buying it at the school and it's been designed by students, the school store is the one producing it. So what they'll do is either them as the class, or if they do take a design from somebody else, depending on what the design is. Like if the play wants a certain design, they'll put it together and then they'll actually order the prints and then produce it at the school store and then distribute it and take their finances, et cetera.
And just a comment that for me, it's so important putting content aside. Again, we want to keep the kids liking school and enjoying learning and prepping them to survive in the workforce. So I love that you're making it a department policy for the late work, having deadlines, accountability, and bringing back some of that. I can't say that my sources are reputable, the articles that I read. I know every generation says the younger generations are terrible and awful, but I know
Kids these days.
that employers are finding some of those coming into the workforce not so employable.
Sure.
And it's really important to me that we do right by these kids, and we're doing them a disservice if we don't hold them accountable. So I love that you are doing that, and I'm hoping that all departments will start coming up with their own ways, or school-wide, bringing back some of that accountability piece. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I have something, but I think, Dr. Boss, are you coming to the podium next? I think it's probably more in your line. It's regarding the MCAS, but it's not really civic specific. But since you brought it up, I just wanted to, I think Dr. Boss is probably better to clear it up for me, so.
Couldn't agree more.
I have a couple questions. If Heidi, you don't have a volume of questions? If I jump over
I
you,
do,
let me
but
know.
you might ask mine
Okay.
first, so.
With the varied subject matter, so moving toward a thematic approach, I love that idea. I love capitalizing on what kids are interested in, because then they'll obviously dig in quite a bit more. I assume it makes it a little more difficult from a teacher's perspective to assess knowledge. So is it more of, like we heard from the language department or maybe English department last year that they were doing like story boards or something like that, where students got to pick how they presented their knowledge. Is that what your department is doing, as opposed to like more standardized tests? Is it
Yeah,
project
definitely.
and-
So there's both. Excuse me. So let me kind of paint a picture of a typical unit. That might help. So it's going to be about 4 to 5 weeks long. There'll be some content delivery. So if, again, the theme is like, leaders in the lead, something like that. Or better yet, a genocide unit already exists. So the teacher will present a specific genocide. There'll be typical quizzes or assessments like that on the material that the teacher presents to kind of see, like I do, and then they'll do something together as a class, we do, and then you do. That's kind of the model that we try to follow. So the I do is, here's one example of a genocide, here are some traditional assessments, homework, things like that. The thing that they might do together is, okay, we'll take a look at one more together to do that maybe as a project or some research. And then the choice would become, okay, here's a list of 15 genocides over the course of history, all over the globe, all over the timeline. Choose one that's interesting to you, and then choose a style of assessment that is interesting to you. So, for example, they might get a list of, you could make a podcast, you could make a video, you could do a mural, or you could write a fictionalized story rooted in the theme that's that. And so that way, the knowledge is certainly the focus, but it's not in terms of just memorizing everything. It's the application of the theme, the application of the skills into some kind of project that's interesting to them. And then we're still kind of figuring out the balance of, do we give them the choice for all 8 of the themes? Do we vary the types of assessments for all 8? Because, if a kid is really, really good at making videos, should they really make 8 videos over the course of the year, or should they be pushed to try something different in the different terms when they're doing it? So I hope that answers your question. If
Yeah,
not, I'm
absolutely.
happy to elaborate more.
Yeah,
But that's kind of the gist, is it's multifaceted.
Okay.
But the agency and the choice is a major focus to let students kind of pick what's interesting to them.
That's great. And then capitalizing on what Danielle was saying about the holding students accountable for late work, also love that. Curious, does that apply to just the high school students, or is that 7 through 12 that you're able to?
So that's right now it's high school only.
Okay.
Middle school is a little bit of a different conversation in terms of, you don't necessarily, you don't fail 7th grade. Like, we essentially socially promote until high school. And so the idea of you don't get a credit, that's when it really starts to mean more, is 9th grade. Like, you can actually fail and not get credit and now have to have some consequence beyond. Now it just goes to the next year. So That's something to certainly talk about with our middle school staff if we want to do that, and then also to talk with Mr. McCurtain to make sure that's something that he philosophically supports as well. So
Gotcha.
certainly not opposed to that, but for this year, that is the focus at the high school exclusively.
Okay, great. And then my last question was on the other business electives that we have. Is AP Psych part of a business elective, or that's history, right?
History, yes.
So have the other business classes changed at all? I wonder if the declining enrollment has to do with students have already taken the class?
It's possible. Yeah, the way our business curriculum is set up is half of the classes are more geared towards 9 and 10. Half of the classes are more geared towards 11 and 12. They're, with the exception of personal finance, you can take them, or accounting is not, you can't take accounting without a prerequisite in a business class. But seniors can take entrepreneurial studies. It's not, but it's mostly freshmen, but it's not. So it goes in 2-year cycles. Like once that group of 9th and 10th graders moves over to 11th grade, there's new electives that they can take. So that's certainly a factor. Is, you know, if they've taken it, they're obviously not going to take it again or take other ones. So it's hard to pinpoint. Maybe it's also AP Psych. There's about 40, 45 kids in that class. That's 40, 45 less elective opportunities for students, so that could factor in as well.
Okay,
But I don't know that I could give you like a definitive answer as to why.
that's fine. Just
Yeah.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
My turn. So the 5 days started this year, correct? So you
Some
have-
teachers had been doing it some teachers had started it last year, but we made the commitment as a department this year. Yeah.
I love it. Are you starting to see a positive impact as a result of uncomfortable conversations?
Yes, I think term 1 was a big shock for a lot of kids. You know, maybe some lower grades than they were used to or expecting. Some challenging conversations with, parents. I think it's the conversation is usually pretty easy in the sense of like once they see what we're trying to accomplish, and the idea of basically like this failure or this learning experience is free, 100% free for you, and it's not in later in life, and so it's usually a pretty quick conversation, and most of the time parents are on our side from the beginning anyways, like, oh, thank you, like we appreciate it. So it has had some harder conversation. Again, the most typical conversation is, wait, I can't just turn this in on the last day of the term. So that's been an adjustment for some of the kids. You can kind of tell it to them 75 times, and until it's like real, it hasn't quite hit home, but I think it's starting to pay dividends. Yeah, at least anecdotally in my own classes, I'm starting to see more students ask to come, and making sure that they're checking and keeping on top of those deadlines. So, and even just today, a student was like, I finished this, I totally forgot to turn it in, but I know you're not going to take it, so I'm not even going to bother to ask and give you the tears and all that show. So I was like, great, we can save each other the hassle of that. And she's like, yeah, I'll take or to quote her, I'll take the L on this one, Mr. Scott. And she's like, I'll just make up for it with the next one. So.
Have you had any pushback from other departments at all?
Not yet. There's potential that people might disagree with the philosophy that we're using. I know other departments, based on the way that they deliver their content or the philosophy that they use, might not use or want to use this same type of thing. And I think that's, as far as I'm concerned, as long as they have a valid reason for wanting to do that, other than, we're making it harder on students or whatever, then that's for them to decide what's in the best interest of their department. But I haven't had those conversations, or other departments' heads haven't been coming up to me like, you're making it harder for us or that kind of thing. So, but.
Well, I think within the vision of creating lifelong learners, this is such a valid learning experience for sure. The school store, are you doing this with an eye to expanding so that down the road, when you have families in the building, things like that, that you would be able to have offerings? Are you looking for like a true business model down the road, or are we still?
It's always been a goal or a dream or an aspiration, I guess, to have some kind of storefront. The challenge becomes staffing it. So the expectation, obviously the contract, that it would be potentially be on the contractual obligations of a staff member. So that's one hurdle to potentially deal with, right? If, you know, it's going to be open at 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve, like that is not in the contract time. So it's hard for me to say, you know, hey, teacher, you need to be here for that. So that's a hurdle. It's not a hard or a deal breaker, but it's a hurdle to overcome, right? But then also figuring out like the students to staff it and their busy schedules to do that. And then some of the feedback, I think, along the way, I'd like to see it in action in Abington first to make the final judgment, but some of the feedback from other communities that had that was, we would staff it, it was great, people loved it, but 90% of the time there was nobody there. And so the online model tended to be more of what a lot of schools have gone to, and so I would imagine that our first step would be a more robust online option to order and ship, as opposed to like a storefront that's open. But then again, there's great opportunities for like a Friday night football game or
Pop-up
a home
shops,
basketball
yeah.
game, or exactly, or like the drama performance, to have exactly like you said, a pop-up shop. So the timing also, because of the nature of the class, the timing needs to line up as such that like September wouldn't work, because the kids have only been in the class for 2 or 3 weeks and they're just not ready for that. So it kind of needs to be in that like second or fourth term when they're at when they have more experience in the class and they're ready to do it. So it's certainly an aspiration. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. We
Yeah, I appreciate the
it.
opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
You want to go?
Yeah, so really quick, regarding the 8th grade civic MCAS, and first I want to thank you in more ways than one for clarifying what it exactly is going to be, the terms. But also, so it's going for grade 8, who I know already has 3 MCAS tests as it is, and now this is going to be 4.
Yeah.
Is there any thought statewide to moving the science out of grade 8 into another grade, so somebody else has 3 instead of one grade having 4?
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
That was it?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I just
Yeah,
more
I mean,
the thought of it, we have 3, 2, 2, 4. Like, I don't know, I just
Yeah.
divide it up more evenly, I guess, would be
I'm
my
with you. I
thinking
agree.
on it, so. And because this is gonna be a going forward basis?
All indications are yes.
Okay, all right, that was it, Chris.
So I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, officially, now that I'm up here. You'll remember last month we talked about the district-wide choice-based professional development day on November 1st called Abington Innovates. You might remember we had about 60 offerings being provided by internal staff as well as organizations who we have outreach with or connections with. So out of the 60 offerings, staff registered for 52 of those. So out of 60, 52 ran, and some of those sessions were at capacity with 20 to 30 participants. The overall feedback on the day of that we received, but also written feedback in our professional development survey, indicates that the event was very well received by staff. They appreciated the ability to choose individual hour-long sessions that focused on their own needs and their interests, kind of like what we were just talking about with student agency and choice in history. And here are, while I keep going, here are just a few survey responses that kind of demonstrate that. This spring, we'll begin planning next year's Abington Innovates Conference, which will be on the November half day as well, which will be Election Day next year, November 5th. Of 2024. I want to thank all of the staff who attended workshops for their enthusiasm and their feedback. We're also grateful to all the presenters from our schools and from external organizations for sharing their time and expertise. This event could not have been successful without the support of food services, our custodial staff, and building administrators. I especially would like to thank Cheryl Doherty, Ann Parks, Danielle Gaylor, and Vicki Graham for their support with the various moving parts and details of the event. And lastly, I would like to thank Peter and Felicia, as well as all of you on the school committee for supporting the professional growth of our faculty. Does anyone have any questions about how Abington Innovates went?
What were the most popular?
By far, the most popular offering was trauma-informed instruction.
Interesting.
So we had multiple options for that, and one of the presenters was not able to be on site that day, so we combined them. So there was one group that had, I think, 30 or 35 people in the seminar room.
And was that by an outside presenter, or was that one of our
Internal.
in-house?
It was our middle and high school psychology staff.
Okay.
Other popular offerings were focused on self-care. So there was a lot of meditation, there was a lot of how to have a healthy work-life balance. But like I said, 52 sessions ran, so it ran the gamut from elementary math, games, to how to use Sora here in the library. Anybody else?
I like the idea of just doing something different, for all of them to get their feedback on it and continue to improve it where you can see it and make tweaks as needed. So,
thank you.
The organization of something like this is a big lift. So Dr. Basta was very kind to thank many people, but he did the organization. The devil's in the detail, and he did all the organization. So, nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Basta. Moving on, report of the superintendent of schools, Mr. Schaefer.
So this is pretty cool for me because I know Sarah and her family really well, and before I introduce her to you, and I think most of you already know her, I want to thank the members of our screening committee, James Robbins, Julie Thompson, Chris Coyle, Felicia Michella, who was the steering person of the committee. I haven't forgotten anybody, right, Felicia? No. That's the group. Thank you. So you've got Sarah's resume in the packet, and I can tell you she's an Abington High School graduate. She's near to completing her master's degree. I can tell you all sorts of things that you can read on her resume, things that she's done to prepare herself for this step. But what isn't on this resume is my knowing full well that she is dedicated, a detailed person, completely committed and loyal to Abington. Her work ethic is unbelievable. She cares deeply about the success of this system, because the success of the system is the success for a community that she loves. It's who she is. That isn't in the resume. And I know those things about her. And so I'm excited to recommend her to you for the position of Director of Finance and Operations for the Abington Public Schools.
So I checked with our legal counsel because I wasn't sure that this was something that was on us to even confirm. So it is. It's part of one of the jobs that the school committee does have to approve the recommended candidate from the superintendent. So at this time, if anybody has any questions for Peter, I'll let you ask Peter the questions, and then if not, we can move on to the next step.
I do not have any questions.
So I'll be looking for a motion to approve Sarah Gainey on the recommendation of Superintendent Schaefer to the Director of Finance and Operations effective July 1st, 2024.
I will make that motion.
I will second it. All in favor? Aye. Sarah, congratulations. Would you like to say a few words? Okay.
I might have to just read it.
That's all right.
A little bit.
So do I.
Good evening. Thank you so much. As Mr. Schaefer mentioned, I am a proud graduate of Abington High School class of 2002. I love this community. I just wanted to share how incredibly excited I am about this new opportunity to serve the children of Abington and the community as a whole. as the Director of Finance and Operations. I would also like to thank the screening committee, Mr. Schaefer, Dr. Michella, for putting their faith in me to fulfill this new role. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve Abington as the school accountant for the last 9 years, and I am eager to continue to serve this community in this new capacity. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yay.
So at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing on school choice. So for the consideration of Abington Public Schools' participation in the school choice program for the 2024-2025 school year. I'm going to leave it to you because I think you know the details better than me on this one, so.
So we're in public session?
Yes.
So this is the opportunity that the community has by regulation, by statute, every year to be heard on the question of school choice. At the end of this moment in time, when if, you know, the comment period, we're going to go back into the regular session, and I'm going to recommend to the committee that we do not participate in school choice. Probably only for the people who are watching on cable. I'm going to explain why. We all know why. But if we don't opt out of school choice for the following school year, every year, we are in it automatically. So we're required to deliberate on this question every year.
So at this time, if anybody would like to speak in the public hearing session for the consideration of school choice for the 2024-2025 school year, I just ask you to come to the podium. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and reopen our session. And if anybody has any questions, did you want to give your recommendations to why now?
Yeah, I honestly, I think it's more for people at home that may be watching this on TV. Why aren't they participating in school choice? We all know that we're tight. We're not bursting at the seams, but the Abington Public Schools is tight. We have our class sizes currently at the earliest elementary levels in the low 20s. And then as you move up through the system in the grades chronologically, you get into the mid 20s and then breach just above the mid 20s. We are tight. We at those numbers, we're close to those points where we would want to hire additional staffing. There's a trigger point where you're going to have to add classroom teachers. Let's say we got 10 kids in a specific grade. You'd want to hire a teacher for that grade. The 10 kids that come to us from another community that school choice provides come with dollars, but it wouldn't cover the additional costs because of those different levers we'd have to pull to accommodate those students. We don't have classes out in trailers and out in front of buildings yet, but we're running out of classroom spaces to add teachers, physical spaces for them. And so that's when the additional dollars are really needed. And it would do a disservice to the students that we are currently serving to add additional students. We do a demographic study every year. Our numbers have really become static. We did have huge increases when we built this building, and now we've really leveled into a more stable population situation, and so we're not seeing a decline like some communities that opt into school choice. And for all of those reasons, I would recommend to the committee that we do not participate in school choice.
Does anybody have any questions, Mr. Schaefer, about it? I know it's something every year, so we kind of have asked in the past.
Just curious, do we as a district have to transport students if we were school choice as well?
They would transport themselves.
Transport themselves.
The question.
And do the dollars that, if we had empty classrooms and more space, do the dollars that come into us from the state more than offset the cost of a student, generally speaking?
I'm
going to put Felicia on the spot. Is it still about $5,000?
Yeah, it is about $5,000, and that's a depends question. If you have, there are some communities that, I'm going to make it up, third grade average class size is 17.
Yep.
So by adding 3 students, you don't have to hire the new teacher like Peter said, but it contributes, it helps offset the cost of having the smaller class sizes. It's hard to, what's the average cost of a student? I mean, if they have special education needs, you get some money for that. But it's only it offsets until you hit something that triggers more services, more teachers, more specialists, more electives.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we had a class size in one area of, 27 students, you added, 10 or 15 students to that one grade, they would come with money, but you'd definitely be hiring a teacher. You'd have to buy furniture. You'd have to buy resources, material supplies, the licensures, the laptops. So,
And we then would keep those students. So we would allow school choice for current children who are going to graduate in 2037.
once
Only
you,
we could choose to do that, but then we keep those students
Correct.
for life.
Once you have them, they're in.
you could decide
Right.
what grades that they could enter in, but once they enter, you keep them. For example, before we built this building, we had school choice for the older building, the high school, but only the high school, because at the elementary level we were the condition we have now. And then once they entered freshman year, we are committed to them until they graduate.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions.
Anybody else have anything? So I'll be looking for, I guess the recommendation was to not opt into. So I will make the motion to not opt into school choice for the 2024-2025 school year.
Have a second.
All in favor of not opting in?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thanks. Could I do a quick add-on?
yes.
So Abington Copes is looking for the town of Abington. Abington Copes is the group of different people in the community invested in addressing drug abuse and preventing and drug prevention work. We've worked hand in hand with Learn to Cope on a number of projects, Abington Copes on a number of projects. They're trying to acquire a $125,000 grant from the drug-free, it's a drug-free communities grant. The money would be spent on drug prevention, prevention of addiction, education, speakers, materials, events, supplies, also staffing to help manage that for Abington Copes. So if they're successful, the Abington Public Schools does not get this money. It is not, we're not eligible for it. We would benefit from Abington Copes getting this money because they would come to us and say, would you like to do this? For instance, the mock car crash was an example. We've had a number of guest speakers where we've collaborated with Abington Copes. So in order to get this grant, they need us to do a survey of our high school students to provide information to the grant, for the grant writing. This is not a pilot. This is a grant that they're writing for. It's not a grant for us, but they're required as a part of this grant for this information to be collected. So the survey that's going to be conducted it does not require school committee approval, but we've vetted how this is done. There is an opt-out. We're going to review the questions. It is anonymous. It is confidential. So it's not identifiable in any way. We've got copies of where the information goes. It doesn't get sold to third parties. It doesn't go anywhere because it's important that we maintain the safety of our students and their information. We need to know where it goes. But I want to explain that to the committee because, people may ask. The high school will do a good job of telling the high school parents that they can opt out. People can look at the questions if they'd like. They are about drug use. And I wanted to make sure the committee was aware. Thank you.
Next, report of the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Michelle.
Thank you. Each year after our hiring is completed and we're able to kind of rebalance our salary and expense account, I come to the committee to vote the budget allocation for the year. And then usually in the June meeting, we make any adjustments that we need to make between the salary and expense line. So in front of you, you have the FY24 initial salary and expense allocation. Salary account being $22,888,078, and the expense account $6,824,548. And this that helps with our it's the salary and expense allocation for FY24.
And then June is when we may need to move stuff back and forth, right? To
Correct.
cover it. Okay.
June is when we do the final allocations. I mean, if we need to.
Okay. No, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Michelle?
Yes, does it trend with what you were originally expecting?
It is, yep. It's very close. I think I might need a vote on
Oh, to set this up?
that. Yep.
Okay. So I'll be looking for a motion to approve the salary and expense allocations as presented by Dr. Michelle.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So up next is our report on the Massachusetts Association of School Committees Delegate Assembly. If you remember the last meeting we had, Melanie was selected as our representative for those meetings to vote as we decided during that. So I just asked her if she would be willing to just go over the way it went, how it went there, and just give a quick summary on some of the things, or basically however you want to summarize it, Melanie, entirely up to you.
Yeah,
So.
sure. So the delegate assembly, there were representatives from a lot of the different districts around Massachusetts. It's an open dialogue. It runs very much like this meeting where there's a board, and then each person who is a delegate for their district is sitting out in the audience. They can come up to the podium, address the questions. There was a lot of dialogue. There was a lot of trying to recess and trying to reschedule for 10 o'clock at night, and there were a lot of feelings about these resolutions and a lot of conflicting experiences from people. So I think it was a great dialogue. I learned a lot. A lot of the resolutions ended up being tabled because there was a lot of chaos and no clear consensus. And in some cases, it made a lot of sense because, for instance, MCAS, there's potential legislation that would impact. So there's no point in MCAS taking a position on MCAS right now when Massachusetts is looking at it. So a few of the resolutions that were tabled, the resolution regarding a diversity, equity, and inclusion staff member, we went through multiple iterations of amendments and we finally tabled that. In addition to the MCAS resolution, the school bus stop armed surveillance where there was a camera on the school bus, that was also tabled because there was a lot of discussion about that. We really needed someone from law enforcement to assist with that decision. And then there was one more that was tabled.
The MCAS.
Say it again?
The MCAS.
Yeah, the MCAS was tabled, yeah. So it was just 3 that were tabled. All of the other decisions, what we voted for as a committee is how the final vote went, with the exception of Resolution 8, which is the safe storage of firearms. Our committee voted no on that, and the final was a yes, and it was a very strong yes. Some of them were more close. That one was not very close. Yeah, Resolution 8.
This is tabled.
That's interesting. Because I have that at final vote was yes.
Cool.
But that's a valid question. So I guess I'll have to come back to you all on that one, because my notes say that we were a yes on that, not that it was tabled. But everything else went according to our votes. Any questions, or any questions on the dialogue as well, and the amendments to the amendments to the amendments to the amendments?
All of the
No,
amendments.
just thank you.
I heard point of order, like,
A lot.
I don't know, maybe 120 times in that meeting.
Thank you for taking one for the team. I've sat in that room. It's quite the experience.
It was
Absolutely.
a long afternoon,
Mhm.
Melanie.
Yeah, Melanie.
I was
thank you.
really hungry.
Thank thank you very much. Thank you very much for going. We can figure out what the,
Resolution
Yeah,
eight,
no
where
worries.
resolution 8 ended up coming
Yeah.
through as, so that's fine. We can, and,
So,
There-
I mean, just on, wait, sorry.
go ahead, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Even on Resolution 8, we're already doing it.
Yeah,
Right.
it doesn't impact
And
us.
even if they voted for or against it, we're still already doing it. And it would have to go beyond MASC to
Right.
get any traction.
And I didn't feel that none of these resolutions I felt had a significant impact on us as a district in terms of a budgetary or logistical impact. It was more about having the MASC have the support in order to lobby at a state level.
Yeah.
Is really what it was based on.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions, Melanie? Great. So next, establishment of the next school committee meeting dates. Sounds very weird. Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. will also include the public hearing on the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget.
Good catch.
Okay. And so that will start at 7:15 p.m. or after, as we found out tonight. And then we will also have our regular meeting 3 weeks later on Tuesday, January 30th. So there's nothing for about 6 or 7 weeks after tonight for the holidays. I know you said you wanted to hit on
Just
couple
one
information
thing?
on them. Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay?
Yep.
So just highlighting the class of 1972, pretty cool. They have, they continue to be active as a class, and they've raised money, and they've decided to donate $3,000 to Abington Public Schools. There's a letter in here from them. We did write them a thank you for this. We wrote them a thank you. Yeah, we wrote them a thank you. And so you can see how the money's broken down. It's just, I don't know, it's great. It's just a nice feeling that they stay connected and they care and that they're helping support kids in the Abington Public Schools. So I want to highlight that with appreciation.
Love that when they say their fond memories of all the Abington Public Schools people and the experiences that shaped their lives. It's really nice.
I thought it was great that they gave something to all 4 of the schools too. It didn't just focus on one of them, because a lot of times you can just focus on this building, the way things can work out. So I was glad I was able to focus on all 4 schools.
And this is a group of people who worked continuously to give back to the community anyway, so the fact that they thought of the schools is tremendous.
It was also really important for them that the money be used to last more than a one-time.
Mm-hmm.
Outdoor space, books, positive messaging. It was really fun and neat to work with Marilyn Weber on some ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you. Some upcoming dates. So some are here, some aren't. Some have changed. So on Thursday, November 30th, so this coming Thursday, will be the class of 2025. Right, did I get that right?
Yes.
The junior class auction from 6 to 9 p.m. in this building, downstairs, all over the place. There'll be plenty of things. I'm going, Heidi, did you want to?
There are baskets, there are raffles, there are amazing items to bid on. There are students and parents who have worked incredibly hard. The junior class advisor is going to be very happy when this is over, but she's done a tremendous job. So you do not have to have a child in high school. You don't even have to have a child come support the junior class. There are amazing prices or raffles at all price points for anybody who's looking for something special for themselves, for a Christmas, Hanukkah gift, whatever. Come on down and shop. Be a good time.
Thank you. The second one, so next Wednesday, December 6th, is an in-service early release day for students. Dr. Robbins, correct me if let me know if I get this wrong, but Thursday, December 7th will be the CPAC meeting at 6:30 p.m. Yeah, it was so our agenda listed as this coming Thursday was rescheduled for next Thursday. And I believe that's the basic rights hearing as well. Is that part of it or no?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And that's going to be here in the library. Just trying to follow along here. Wednesday, December 11th is the LPAC meeting at 7 PM in the seminar room. Now, this is where it gets weird. Monday, December 25th to Monday, January 1st is holiday vacation break. Tuesday, January 9th, as I mentioned, is the next school committee, which also has the preliminary school budget hearing. And then the next regular school committee meeting will be Tuesday, January 30th, the end of the month. That is all I had. Does anybody else have anything they wanted to add? Anything missed out? Any other dates? No? All right, so if nothing else, then I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays. I know that sounds weird this early, but happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you in 2024.